Hello everyone, and welcome back to LexiMind, the channel where knowledge meets language learning.
That's right. If you're new here, this is the place where we dig deep into amazing books, discuss the big ideas inside them, and at the same time, we teach you real, useful language that you can actually use in your everyday life.
I'm Mary.
And I'm Lucas, and today we have an absolute page-turner for you.
Hello and welcome back to LexiMind. Imagine opening your eyes. You're completely alone in a strange bed, surrounded by these weird mechanical arms. And honestly, the scariest part, you have absolutely no idea who you are, where you are, or how you even got there. Today, we're doing an explainer on the thrilling sci-fi novel Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. It starts as this terrifying mystery of waking up in space with total amnesia, and well, it turns into one of the greatest survival stories ever written. Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to break this down into a few parts. First, waking up in space, followed by the extraterrestrial threat. Then, forging an alien friendship, and a heroic ultimate choice. Finally, we'll wrap things up with some key vocabulary and expressions. So you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the sci-fi adventure right now, because we'll catch all the tricky vocabulary words together at the very end. All right, part 1, waking up in space. So our story begins with a man who slowly, kind of fuzzily, remembers his name is Ryland Grace. Now, he's not your typical highly trained astronaut. He's actually just a middle school science teacher, and he wakes up completely alone. His first big questions are pretty basic. Where am I? What's my name? Grace has total amnesia. His memory is just gone. And as he starts looking around the room, he makes a pretty horrific discovery. His 2 crewmates are dead in their beds. By dropping simple objects and just timing how they fall, our science teacher figures out he isn't spinning in a centrifuge to simulate gravity. No, he's actually on a spaceship experiencing massive continuous acceleration. He's traveling incredibly fast through deep space. Suddenly, his memories start coming back in pieces, which brings us to part 2, the extraterrestrial threat. He finally remembers why he's out in space to begin with, and it's because of a massive civilization-ending problem facing Earth, 19. That number is absolutely terrifying. Grace remembers that Earth has exactly 19 years left before a total climate catastrophe. We're talking half the human population dying from starvation and freezing temperatures. And why? Well, because this tiny extraterrestrial microbe called astrophage is literally eating the sun's energy, causing our sun to slowly go dark. So humanity throws together this desperate plan, led by a super strict administrator named Eva Strad. It's brilliantly simple, really. Step 1, discover and study this astrophage. Step 2, build a massive ship called the Hail Mary. And step 3, travel to the star Tau Ceti. Why there? Because Tau Ceti is the only nearby star that somehow isn't infected by astrophage, and Grace's whole job is to figure out why. But of course, there's a tragic catch. Because they needed so much fuel just to reach another star, there isn't enough left for a return trip. It's a one-way trip to save humanity, literally a suicide mission. Grace knows he's never going home. Once he finds the answer at Tau Ceti, his mission is to send the data back to Earth on these small unmanned probes, which in a fun little twist, he actually names after the Beatles. And that brings us to part 3, forging an alien friendship. When Grace finally arrives at Tau Ceti, he makes this absolutely shocking discovery. There is literally another spaceship parked right next to his. He isn't the only one out there looking for answers. Inside that alien ship is an astronaut Grace decides to nickname Rocky. And you guys, these two couldn't be more different. Grace is human, he's from Earth, and obviously he needs oxygen to live. Rocky? Well, he's an alien from a planet called Irid. He's 291 years old, he has these incredibly thick rock-like fingers, and he needs extreme heat and pressure just to survive. But despite all those wild differences, they actually connect. Over a few days, they make first contact. Over weeks, using physical models and sound frequencies, they manage to build a shared language. And over months, they work side by side. But what truly bonds them is shared grief. You see, Rocky was part of a huge crew, but everyone else died on the journey. And Grace obviously lost his 2 crewmates as well. So together, these 2 lonely astronauts slowly forge a really beautiful friendship out in the dark. Now all of this builds up to part 4, a heroic ultimate choice. Together, Grace and Rocky travel to a nearby planet called Adrian to finally solve this mystery. And they do it! Success! On this planet, they discover a natural predator. It's this tiny microbe that actually eats astrophage. Grace names it Tumuba. I mean, this is the exact miracle they've been praying for. Tumuba can be sent back to Earth and to Eret to eat the astrophage and literally save both of their worlds. But right at this incredible moment of victory, Grace remembers a really dark truth about himself. As the book says, he never volunteered for this mission and reacted to it with sheer terror, not heroism. Yeah, Grace realizes he was actually terrified. He never wanted to go on the suicide mission. Eva Stratt literally had to drug him and force him onto the ship completely against his will. So he wasn't this brave hero at all. He was just a terrified science teacher. And now, the real test of his heroism arrives. Right after Grace and Rocky say their emotional goodbyes to head back to their respective homes, total disaster strikes. The predator microbe, the Tamoeba, escapes its containment. And worse, it actually eats a material called xenonite. Now, why is that bad? Because Rocky's entire ship is made of xenonite. The microbe eats through the fuel tanks, and Rocky's ship loses absolutely all power. Suddenly, Rocky is totally stranded in deep space. So Grace is faced with an impossible choice. He finally has enough fuel to go home to Earth, be a massive hero, and live out his life. Or he can turn his ship around and save Rocky. And what does he do? Grace chooses his friend over his home. He rescues Rocky, knowing he's giving up his only chance to ever see Earth again. But it's a happy ending, kinda. The probes successfully save Earth, and Grace gets to live out the rest of his days peacefully as a highly respected science teacher on Rocky's alien planet. How cool is that? What an absolutely amazing story. All right, let's shift gears and move into part 5, key vocabulary and expressions. You guys have focused so well on the plot, and now it's time for our educational wrap-up. Let's look at some of the key English vocabulary we used in this explainer. Here are the 8 target expressions we just heard. Number 1, amnesia. 2, extraterrestrial. 3, suicide mission. 4, to forge a friendship. 5, catastrophe. 6, predator. 7, against his will. And 8, stranded. Okay, let's break these down simply. So the crucial point here is understanding exactly how to use them. First up, amnesia. This is a medical condition where you lose your memory. For example, Ryland Grace woke up with amnesia and couldn't remember his name. Second, extraterrestrial. You can use this as an adjective or a noun, and it just means something that comes from outside of planet Earth. Example, astrophage is an extraterrestrial microbe. Next, a suicide mission. This is a highly dangerous task that you know you probably will not survive. Like in our story, traveling to Tau Ceti without enough fuel to return was a suicide mission. Then we have to forge a friendship. To forge means to slowly and carefully build something really strong, like metal. So to forge a friendship means to build a strong relationship with someone over time. Example, Grace and Rocky forged a strong friendship in deep space. Moving right along, catastrophe. This is a terrible disaster that causes immense damage or suffering. Example, the dying sun would cause a climate catastrophe on Earth. Next up is predator. That's an animal, or in this case, a microbe, that hunts and eats others to survive. Example, Tau amoeba is a predator that eats astrophage. Finally, against his will. This simply means being forced to do something that you really do not want to do. Example, Eva Stratt put Grace on the spaceship against his will. And our last word, stranded. This means being left in a place without any way to escape or travel further. Example, when his fuel was eaten, Rocky was stranded in space. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Would you sacrifice a trip to your home planet to save a brand new friend you just met? It really is a huge question about what makes us human. Thank you so much for exploring this amazing sci-fi story and learning English with us today. Keep practicing those vocabulary words, and we'll see you next time, right here on LexiMind.